The intriguing evidence of the Holy Shroud of Turin, long debated for centuries, arouses both belief and skepticism. Could this cloth really be the burial shroud that enveloped Christ? Or is it simply an elaborate medieval forgery? The enigma is compounded by recent discoveries, which challenge long-held opinions and leave many open-mouthed. Originating in the Middle Ages, it was first officially recorded in the 14th century, although its legend goes back much further. In 1978, the Shroud of Turin research project, STURP, was initiated, headed by Beris Wartz, the principal photographer. This group of American scientists and researchers began an exhaustive study to unravel the method by which the image of the shroud was created, whether by painting, singeing, or a completely different process. The team, initially skeptical and from diverse backgrounds, undertook a detailed scientific analysis. Over a period of October 1978, they devoted 120 continuous hours to the examination, employing a variety of scientific techniques to analyze its fabric. Their aim was to determine the properties of the image and to discover what could have caused such a detailed impression of a crucified man. Contrary to what was originally thought, the results of the investigation suggested that the image was not the work of medieval craftsmen. Instead, it was possibly created by a sudden burst of high-energy light, which could not have been reproduced with the technology available during the medieval period. The conclusion was later supported by a team of Italian scientists and experts from the National Institute, who also agreed that the image was not a forgery, but could have been marked by a supernatural event. The characteristics of the shroud are unique. The image it contains, front and back views of a man who appears to have undergone crucifixion, has qualities that modern scientific methods have difficulty explaining or reproducing. The detailed images of the cloth and its chemical composition, including traces of human blood, remain a mystery. In its present state, the shroud remains an enigmatic symbol that raises more questions than it answers. But it never ceases to fascinate you, me, and everyone in the world. If this exploration fascinates you as much as it does us, show us your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel. Your participation helps us bring you more interesting content. Now, get ready, because this video is about to get more interesting. So, led by John Jackson since his encounter with the shroud as a teenager, the intense 1978 research initiative laid the groundwork for enduring scholarly research. Jackson's direction from Denver to Italy marked an important era, establishing a legacy of rigorous examination that continues at his center in Colorado Springs. The 1970s effort, extensively documented by photographer Beris Wartz, became foundational, and the Vatican considered the insights gleaned definitive for the study of the shroud. Despite the restrictions imposed on further experiments, the Vatican allows conservation efforts, underscoring the delicate condition of the shroud and its inestimable historical importance. Challenging the 1988 carbon dating, which suggested a medieval creation, recent analyses argue for a re-evaluation of the age of the shroud, widening the debate over its authenticity. This skepticism is fueled by the immense scientific data accumulated in 1978, vital to any credible scholarly debate. Although the shroud remains less accessible to the public, its virtual presence has increased, especially with the advent of the internet and personal computers, which has favored its study beyond academic circles. This digital age has democratized information, allowing both experts and amateurs to explore various hypotheses about the formation of the image. Controversial but intriguing is Nicholas Allen's theory, which suggests a medieval ability to create a photographic-like image on the shroud. He proposes that a primitive camera obscura technique could have been used, with a large camera obscura and a glass lens. According to Allen, the shroud was exposed on each side for about 40 days, using a light-sensitive emulsion, a method devised long before modern photography. John Allen has recently revised his theory about the shroud, proposing a different third exposure for the facial image using a specialized lens. This adjustment is intended to protect the rest of the body from deteriorating under the intense sunlight required for the exposure. Allen also postulates that the darkroom used was located in a cold climate, although he offers no examples of this medieval photographic method in extant art or historical photographic records. Despite a thorough analysis of historical references to lenses and the camera obscura, there is no evidence that medieval individuals combined this optical knowledge with the chemical and physical elements necessary to create photographic images. This absence raises questions. If such a technique existed, why are there no further examples of this unique art form? Surely such a discovery would have brought fame to its inventor. Allen suggests that the shroud is the result of 3 different exposures, with the facial image produced separately from the body. He supports this claim with the discovery of spherical aberration in the facial image, indicating that even medieval photographers would have faced significant challenges that persist even with today's advanced techniques. The shroud, with its detailed depictions on both obverse and reverse, shows a number of minute markings, although the reverse is less well defined, lacking clarity in facial and digital features. Nevertheless, the visible whipping marks on the shoulders, back, buttocks and legs are extraordinarily sharp. In addition, Allen points out that the shroud has stigmata that correspond to religious practices of the 10th and 11th centuries, adding a layer of historical and cultural significance. This aspect of the shroud has been examined by pathologists and anatomists who affirm the realistic accuracy of the observed pathologies. As for the bloodstains, research indicates that they were present on the cloth before the image was formed, suggesting that they played a role in its creation. However, Allen has not addressed in depth how these stains might have influenced the development of the image. He bases his argument on the acceptance of medieval carbon dating of the shroud, while rejecting the idea that the image is a painting. This leads to the compelling hypothesis that the image was formed by an intense burst of ultraviolet radiation, possibly indicative of a resurrection event as described in the Gospels, aligning the shroud more closely with the burial cloak of Jesus of Nazareth. The request for new carbon dating adheres to strict sampling standards, possibly in line with 4 new dating techniques recently proposed. If these new tests match, with results around 50, the origin of the shroud as the burial cloak of Jesus Christ could be affirmed, corroborating the theories about his resurrection. Did you like the video? Don't forget to like it, subscribe, and use the super thank you feature to show your appreciation. It encouraged us to share more ideas with you. Let's now talk about the enigma. The enigma of the shroud's creation persists, defying a clear scientific explanation. Dr. John Jackson's 2008 research offers a compelling hypothesis. He proposes that intense ultraviolet radiation blasted the discolored outer fibers without burning them, creating an accurate negative 3-dimensional image of the front and back of the deceased. This hypothesis suggests that there is no known natural source of such radiation, indicating a possible supernatural implication linked to the resurrection of Christ. Although scientifically proving a supernatural event is unfeasible, researchers can effectively eliminate natural explanations for the phenomenon. Jackson's new ideas suggest that, after death, the subject of the shroud may have emitted a brief but intense burst of ultraviolet light, which caused the fabric to dehydrate and discolor. According to his theory, the body inside the shroud became mechanically transparent, emitting light evenly from all angles, thus forming the detailed double image observed. This theory, while consistent with observations, goes beyond the limits of current physical laws, which offer no explanation for these phenomena in decomposing bodies. Jackson argues that if no future physical theory can explain these observations, the phenomenon could suggest an influence beyond known physics, potentially pointing to a metaphysical or supernatural cause. As science continues to explore the boundaries of the physical world, the shroud remains a profound mystery, which may suggest realms beyond our current understanding. Although we cannot conclusively prove a cause beyond the physical, the specific conditions observed on the shroud allow us to reasonably contemplate such possibilities. The idea that the shroud may be directly related to the resurrection of Jesus invites deep reflection. As science grapples with its limits, the shroud presents anomalies that challenge our understanding of the natural world, suggesting the involvement of phenomena that currently elude scientific understanding. Resurrection signifies more than a simple reanimation. It represents a metamorphosis into what St. Paul calls a spiritual body, a state that transcends the physical, marked by glory and power. Such a transformation alludes to a reality far grander than the tangible, pushing us toward a broader and more mystical understanding of existence. To propose that an intense burst of light could have initiated the transformation of Jesus from a corporeal to a spiritual and glorified state offers a tantalizing theory, especially when one considers the mystifying image of the shroud in conjunction with the descriptions of St. Paul and the Gospel accounts. This correlation posits the shroud not only as an ancient cloth, but potentially as a tangible artifact of the resurrection. The argument against the shroud belonging to someone other than Jesus is strengthened when one considers the absence of evidence to support that it is a medieval invention. The precise anatomy it shows, including the pre-image formation of accurately depicted blood clotting, exactly matches known human physiology, details unlikely to have been fabricated by medieval hands. Furthermore, the presence on the surface of the shroud of pollen grains indigenous to ancient Palestine and traces resembling coins of the period call into question the idea of a medieval origin. These elements specific to 1st century Palestine seem to be beyond the capabilities of a medieval forger. The authenticity of the shroud, coupled with its unique characteristics, signs of thorns, scourging, and a Roman spear, would enhance its credibility as a relic of Jesus. These details, combined with the shroud's depiction of a burst of ultraviolet radiation, are consistent with Pauline descriptions of a glorified transformation, underscoring the possibility that the shroud is more than just a cloth. It could be a gateway to understanding a pivotal moment in Christian theology. Christianity offers a unique interpretation of the resurrection that clearly differs from the Jewish and pagan perspectives. While Judaism envisions a physical rebirth of the flesh and paganism views immortality as an ethereal existence, Christianity conceives of resurrection as a glorious, physical transformation. The Shroud of Turin, a relic that supposedly covered Jesus after his death, vividly illustrates this concept. Originating from the 1st century, the shroud has markings consistent with the crucifixion and resurrection accounts, making it highly unlikely that it belonged to anyone other than Jesus. The presence of intense ultraviolet radiation marks on the shroud further corroborates its association with these miraculous events, underlining its authenticity. Meticulously preserved in Turin since its arrival in 1578, the shroud has been housed in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist since 1694. It is infrequently exhibited, but attracts millions of people, eager to contemplate the traces of the crucifixion imprinted on both sides of the linen cloth. This fabric, made from flax stalks, undergoes a rigorous process to transform it into linen threads suitable for weaving, highlighting the meticulous care with which it is created. The Gospels, particularly those of Luke and John, detail the burial of Jesus, noting the linen wrappings and a separate cloth over his head, which some speculate could be the shroud itself. This speculation is fueled by the detailed imagery of the shroud and its coincidence with the biblical descriptions of Jesus' crucifixion and burial. The question of whether the shroud is really the burial cloth of Jesus depends on thorough historical, scientific, and biblical analysis. Although popular interpretation does not always coincide with the objective evidence, the physical properties of the shroud, such as the specific weave of the linen and the precise nature of the impressions, correspond closely with the biblical account of Jesus' death. Doubts about carbon-14 dating, which initially placed the Shroud of Turin between 1002 and 1400 AD, have opened the door to the possibility that it could date back to the time of Christ. This possible coincidence with the time of Jesus Christ enhances the importance of the shroud and builds a profound bridge between science and faith. The vivid depiction of the Passion of Christ on the shroud resonates especially with younger generations, who are helped to visualize and perhaps understand the deeper aspects of the Christian faith, such as the suffering and resurrection of Jesus. This tangible connection provided by the shroud helps make the foundational stories of Christianity more relatable and impactful. As we discover more about the shroud, if you like this content, please subscribe and use Super Thanks to support our efforts. Your contributions make it possible for us to continue to bring these enlightening stories to light. Thus, officially recognized by the Vatican, the shroud has been the subject of numerous papal declarations, including a formal recognition by Pope Julius I in the Bulla Romanos Pontifex of April 25, 1506. This declaration celebrated a Mass dedicated to the shroud, highlighting its revered status within the Church. In addition, references to the shroud by Pope Sixtus V in his treatise on the precious blood emphasize its representation as bearing the true blood and image of Jesus Christ, although not without controversy due to other similar relics. Historically identified as royal linen provided by Joseph of Arimathea, the authenticity of the shroud remained unquestioned until the late 19th century. In 1898, during a public exhibition, it was photographed for the first time, revealing its negative image qualities, details more distinctive than the cloth itself. This discovery suggested to some researchers that the image could be the result of ammonia vapors released post-mortem, which resulted in a unique stain pattern that no medieval forger could reproduce. Today, the shroud is kept under strict security measures in the Cathedral of Turin, protected by bulletproof glass and closely monitored by security cameras. Although the original cloth is not exposed to the public due to its fragility, a replica can be seen in the chapel where it is kept. In addition, the shroud will be on display in 2025 during the Jubilee year, on dates to be announced by the Vatican in the near future. For those unable to visit during the exhibition, the Museum of the Shroud of Turin offers an in-depth exploration of its history and enigmas through detailed exhibits. This museum serves as a resource for both scholars and the general public to delve deeper into the mysteries of the shroud, its impact on faith, science, and the collective Christian consciousness. This ongoing dialogue between past and present, science and faith, continues to make the Shroud of Turin a focal point of Christian heritage and a beacon for those seeking to understand the profound mysteries of faith through the lens of historical evidence. Thank you very much.